Welcome to our session, Self-Advocacy, the Missing Link in ADLs. We are joined today with Hannah Fairbairn, who is the author of When You Cannot Believe Your Eyes. I happened to get a chance to read this book before today's interview, and I have to say it is one of the absolute best books that I have read on adjusting to vision loss and coping strategies. So Hannah, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. And I hope you've had a really good conference, and I'm delighted to be here and being with Sylvia and everybody else. So yes, this book, I should introduce myself a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
I worked at, I'm legally blind. I have a little sight, and I worked at the Carroll Center for 18 years. I started off teaching personal management, and then here's what happened. After I'd been there a year or two, my boss asked me to teach a small group of young adults with delayed cognitive delays about how you speak up when you're in an institution, how you make requests, that kind of thing. And while I was teaching this class, a couple of really advanced adults who were nearing the end of their programs, who were really good at stuff, came to me and said, you know, this shift in social skills that has to take place over spoken communication, we need that. Why don't you take us? And they'd already got a little group together. They got the 3 or 4 people ready. So I asked my boss, and he said, go ahead. And so we started this group, which came to be called Interpersonal Skills. And what we were working on was the way that once you lose eye contact, some or all facial expressions, some or all gestures, body language, all the like 250 different types of facial expression, so on, that people use, especially at the beginning of interactions. You have to be able to speak up and to be to use self-advocacy and assertive speech in everyday life. And that's what this little group, many of whom later became members of the book focus group, wanted me to talk about and discuss with them, and they would do role plays of things they found difficult. So that was how the book began.
So the book was actually published, I believe, very recently. So it took a while. Tell us about that. You know, what were you doing during that time? And
well, of course, I was teaching, and I would try to get some parts of the book written, and I would have, and it really changed over the time. I started off thinking this would be all about just speech. And so the first name of the book was going to be The Blind Person's Phrase Book. That was the first idea. And it was just going to be a little thing, almost a pamphlet. And this was in the days before the iPhone, you understand. So, and then it became clear. I did over 100 long interviews with clients, consumers who were coming into the interpersonal skills little program. They generally would get about 6 classes in interpersonal skills during their long program. And of course, being an agency with a residential program, we were able to do this stuff. And I know that other places and other agencies can't do that. But anyway, so I would do these long interviews, and what came up again and again and again were the social losses. people had lost all their acquaintance friends, you know, their work friends, their semi-friends, their church friends, not all their church friends, some had really, but they would end up with a kind of almost entirely with their families, or what family substitute people, and they didn't get out much and they didn't meet people much, and they were really going towards semi-isolation. And of course, after the last few months, we all know about what happens with isolation and how hard it is. And so, you know, combine that with recent vision loss and you've really got, and people, everybody learns that they have to speak up differently, but they scramble up into any old thing, you know, and often it is either rather passive, rather non-assertive, or people get angry. And of course, it's very natural to be angry when you've lost sight, and they start being aggressive. And of course, that doesn't work, you know. So learning how to speak up in this firm, positive, cheerful if you can manage it, determined way, and being very specific is a real need for people. And I think it is the missing link in activities of daily living, because, you know, everybody has to speak and they have to make this adaptation. And it would be great if everybody learned at least something about how to do it.
Well, as I said, I thought it was fascinating. I'm so glad that you were persistent and you finished the book, because I think it's going to add a lot to both people who are visually impaired and their families, but also to professionals who work in the field with people who are visually impaired. And at one point in the book, you talk about how self-advocacy is almost a key to the vision rehabilitation process for success in rehabilitation. And as you said, it's something that often gets left out. We like to, or the field likes to provide a device and help people, you know, either maximize their residual vision, or here's a device to cope with your vision loss. But you're right, teaching those self-advocacy skills, because someone's not always there with you, and technology's not always there with you, and a device is not. And it really does open the door for you to get out. So Hannah, what would you say are the three major takeaways that you want? And I would say maybe this is two different things. The first one is, what are the three major takeaways for people who are visually impaired? And then also, is that different for professionals working in the field? Maybe those are the same three takeaways, but talk a little bit about that. What would you say are the key things that you wanted people to take away?
Well, I'm going to start talking about readers who have vision loss and their families, which was the primary focus for the book, because I wanted, when this began, which was, you know, nearly 20 years ago now, 15 anyway, I wanted people to have something beside the bed in their pocket that gave them back a sense of agency, if that's the right term, a sense of, oh yeah, I'm still me. I'm still who I was. I can believe in myself. So first of all, I want readers to understand that they are still themselves and their families are still their families, and they have to learn to speak rather differently and more specifically at home. And they have to take back as soon as they're able. Some people, as everybody knows, are so shocked and so sick, maybe with other things, that they can't really take back managing their lives immediately. But as soon as people feel able to, they should take back managing stuff at home, managing doctor's appointments, and being pretty firm about it. Not rude, but persistent and firm about getting what you need. So that's kind of a big area right there. And the second thing is for readers and their families to, and this is really hard because we all go through I would say, well, nothing's all, but many, many, many people go through long years of denial about how serious this is. And so allowing for that, when you are ready as a reader of, and families go through, you have to go through grief, and it's tough, and really learn to trust in yourself that you're still the same person, but you can't just step from one side to the other. You have to really unpack all those feelings of anger and distrust and so on. So being able to trust yourself again so that you can really speak out about this. And thirdly, I would really like readers to, when they're ready, think about how they are going to practice this. And you wouldn't necessarily start with the family, which is often a very slow ship to move. I would start in stores, at cafes, places where people are paid to help you, and start there and see if you can practice some of this in the shower with your cousin on the phone or a best friend, or perhaps you can find somebody else with vision loss who you can practice with, or when we open up again, go to a support group meeting and suggest this as a topic. So that's what I would like readers to do, to really get onto this and find themselves again, feel like a real person again, not sort of making believe and trying to make do and not saying anything about their vision loss, which is very tempting, of course.
So that was one thing that I really noticed throughout the book, is that you really drew in the emotional adjustment process. And you talked about how important expressing feelings were. And you said to everyone who read that book, these feelings are normal. I think that that is empowering when you say, this is normal to feel that anger, that sadness. I think that's so empowering. And then you mentioned, the firmness, and in the book, you call it being assertive for yourself. And I love how you describe what's the difference between being assertive and aggressive and passive. And we're often, I think, a little bit cautious as people who are visually impaired to ask for assistance. Are we going to overstep? Are we going to put someone out? And so your suggestion is now about making that first, step in that to people who are actually paid to do that for us is just a great recommendation. And I agree too, as I remember when I needed to start using the white cane. Of course, I was in denial for a little while about needing to use that white cane, and this goes back years.
Yeah.
And the first place that I was comfortable using that white cane was with people I didn't know.
Of course.
And then it gets, and then the more I used it, the closer the people got. The last people I use the cane with on a regular basis were my closest family, who, by the way, we all like to delude ourselves and think they're the ones who really, they're the ones who know that we need to use it. And so I think finally when we use that white cane, they're like, thank God, I was tired of, trying to make sure you didn't fall down 5 steps,
Yes.
So I think it was just powerful the way you talked about the feelings, about being assertive, and providing some very specific suggestions that people could follow.
Yes.